The glare is so bad. I need to get the new print as a not glossy
Oh,
version. Maybe I can tilt this.
wait. So we're. Hold on. I'm hearing. I did that thing where I left the window open by accident. Okay, hold on. There. That's why there was an echo. I was like, why am I hearing myself? Hello. I've got some big news to share today. Once we get started, Ella, I am really excited. I know you already know this, but I want to say that now is the time that we're. This is my old pen. My old pen died on that last stream we all did together. So we're gonna hold a little funeral for this pen, okay? Because I've got this little casket, and
The cast.
we're gonna put the little pen in the casket, and we're gonna have a little wake for this pen that has been with me for 15 years. So we have an open casket funeral that you all are welcome to pay your respects to the. Well, hold on. Some of
It's
you,
funny that it's not in focus. I feel like
I know
that's
I'm trying
telling.
to get it to. There we go.
There we go.
It's dead, but this is the pen that's going to stay in my archive for some time because this was here from the very start. So, like I want all of. Oh, hold on. It'll focus in a
Hello.
second. Hold on. It's mad at me. Did it? Hello. It's so sensitive. Hold on a second. If I stay still, I think there we go. Okay, now okay. So we bid adieu to the first
Goodbye.
pen. Goodbye.
For so long.
Open casket. Did you get to all pay your respects? Open
We
casket.
need cannons to go off.
Need cannons to go off. That's right. And all the nibs that I never used. In fact, the nail in the coffin was when you guys told me to go ahead and change my nib. It like ruined it, and so it was the end of it. So we're gonna close the casket. An old chapter comes to a close. This pen that had served me so well now gets put away. It's done. And we introduce our new pen.
Yay.
And this pen is nice. Okay, can I just say that my other pen, as faithful as it was kind of, even though this is also a Wacom pen, but it was kind of like there was a little jankiness to it. This one, this say hi, and you guys can come up with a name
We
for
need
the
to
pen. We
name
need to
it.
name
Yeah.
this pen on this chat, so we're gonna do that. Anyway, so Ella, it's good to see you. As if I haven't
It's
been
good to see
talking to you
you.
all day today.
Yeah, as if we haven't been working 12-hour
Right,
days every
exactly.
day forever.
So we're gonna be working on this Gooba piece that I drew a while back, and I promised you guys I was gonna finish. So I'm gonna finish that up real quick on this live. If you guys liked the Hugo flexing one that I did yesterday, it's now available in the print shop. And I just put a link on Twitter to that. So you guys should check that out if you want to take that one home with you. How many years? So the last one, I think we calculated like 12 or 13 years,
Yeah,
I
I
think.
think that's an over exaggeration, but yeah, I think because
No, it
you
really
were
was
saying
12 years.
9. I thought it was 9. I thought we had decided that it
Oh,
was
was it
9 years.
9? Oh,
Yeah.
it was 9. You're right. It was 9 years. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Let's say 12, and it's really, who knows?
It
Who
felt like
knows?
12. The amount of
It
work, the amount of like important work it did
Mhm. Mhm. Enough for
should
12
count
years
for
worth.
something, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All
In
right.
miles
So,
it's 12, In dog years it's 12. In human years it's 9.
All right, so I'm gonna clean this up. Ella had some different programming today, and I kind of pulled executive privilege today, and I was like, I really want to clean
You
this
did,
up.
and I'm really proud of you, because I was a little shocked because normally I'm so used to getting my way. You know what I mean? Um,
Yes, normally she
but
gets her way. All right, ready?
yeah,
So
we're
let's
ready.
start doing this. So Ella, are you excited about your game night tonight?
Yes, I am. So, for those of you who don't know, we're doing, Flux Fantasy is in its beta phase. It's out, it's playable. And so we are going through and I'm hosting game nights in which I'm GMing. And we did our session zero, which, if you don't know, a session zero is sort of where you talk about character arcs and, if you have any questions about just like how to play the game. And then you kind of do like a little bit of a character study, like how am I going to battle? What am I going to do? And then tonight we're playing the tutorial game, which is at the end of the beta book, which is free if you get the beta book. It's like a special story that we're doing. It's kind of an all encompassing how to play, hopefully, and so we're gonna have fun tonight with that. And it's a lot to be a GM, but it's actually much easier with the version of the book that we're using. I find it. Yeah, I did write it, so that's one thing, but I find it easier than some of the other D and other RPG type games that I've played because it's structured differently. So if you've gotten the book and you've been able to look at the tutorial game, you should let us know if you've played it or how you feel about that style of GMing, and let us know what you think of it because I really like it. I might be a little bit biased, but I enjoy having things more structured. Instead of being like, okay, well, there's a house. It tells you what's in the house and it tells you the different people in the house, and there's more dialogue, that you can pull from instead of just like running into a situation blind. And it gives the GM more creativity. I feel like.
I
So
think so
hopefully,
too.
yeah. So one of the chat asks, when is the next session? I think it's going to be next Monday. We'll post it soon. Like the new link to sign up. We're doing it through this cool calendar system. As if I was like your hairstylist, you could book. We're doing it where you could basically like book a GM, and so we're trying to get more GMs on there actually. Um, and so I'm I'm going to be doing one next week for sure. I don't know if we'll have another GM yet. We will have to talk about it. But it'll be the same. So we do it like Mondays and Thursdays, um, sort of after the live, and then when we're not having a live on Thursdays. So it'll be fun. It'll be lots of fun. And of course, we've got more RPG programming that's coming out very soon, which I cannot wait to talk about. I'm keeping it really vague because I want to like announce it very formally, like who's going to be playing with us and all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be very, very fun, and hopefully it'll be a little bit different, than the stuff I'm GMing, in the games. But it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, I heard some great reviews on how your session zero went and I loved watching the playback of the first playtest that you did, which was
Yeah.
really good.
Well, I'm glad, and I think here's the thing. What's really fun about the games is that they really are always different. You know what I mean? No matter what
Right.
you do, they're always, because you're always going to have a different group of people. They're always going to choose different paths. I could play this game 100 times and probably will, by the time that Flux Destiny is over, and I will have played it 100 different ways, because it's so up to the characters, who are in it. And like the people who are going to play tonight will find out, there's so many different paths that you can take. So, and I really do hope that that will be a lot of fun, to go through. And I hope that those of you who end up GMing, which I hope is all of you, I hope you all choose to GM at some point, that you know you um, you have fun and you're able to do the games over and over again because they're always going to be different.
Well, and you're doing so many new ones that you're developing too.
You guys have
That
no idea. So many, yes.
I mean,
So
there's a
always
lot
going to be
going
stuff.
on.
Mm-hmm. you've got a comment about your brushes. Do you want to talk about your new brushes, Chris?
Oh, actually, yes. I didn't get to talk about these brushes earlier.
We'll get back
So
to Flux Fantasy in a second. Well, for a commercial break.
I'm glad someone noticed. I was going to say something. So this is the new brush that I got thanks to Nyx, who does our official Flux Destiny art, Flux Fantasy art. And it just hit me the other day. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna ask Nyx if if he, if he can send me his brushes, if he'd share his like Photoshop brush with me.
Hmm.
And he wrote me back right away. And I mean, we work together all day, so it's not like it's like he's not going to write me back, but his
He
boss. But
ignored me for a
I was
while.
like, yeah, I'm his boss, but he did send it to me, and I was like, hey, do you mind sending me your brush? And then he sent me this brush, and actually, the hunky Hugo bicep drawing that was done using the new brushes, and I got the new brushes and my new pen at the same time, and I was super excited. I
A
was
double
super excited.
upgrade.
It felt fresh and new, and I could do something different. You know, it just felt it just felt awesome. So
It does look really nice.
yeah, it's more of a it has that grain in, right, like Katie says, it's like an actual pencil, right? So it has a more like real feel to it. Hunky
Yeah.
Hugo. Did you like that, Boofy? I am a marketing expert. I'm a marketing expert. That just came to me. So I promised our patrons that I would color this one in, and so I am fulfilling my promise. By the way, you guys should have seen our our top tier patrons. You guys should have seen that we uploaded the first character pack today. You want to tell them about that?
Yeah, so if you don't know, on our Patreon, we tried to give a lot of different sort of value things on our Patreon. So the top tier is like our Flux Fantasy tier. It's those who are like really, really interested in the RPG, and they get certain sort of expansions for free. One of them being this thing we're calling the NPC pack. You guys have sort of seen our trading cards that we're starting to do, and more about that will come very soon. But one of the things that we're doing is called an NPC pack, in which we sort of provide these sort of pre-made characters, and they've got little bits of story to them so that you can plop them into your story, at any time without having to like fish for all of these NPCs or like their stories, because it's difficult to make things on the fly. You know what I mean? Like if I were to walk into a store, or my characters and players were to walk into a store and just be like, who's the shopkeeper? And I haven't thought about it, I can pull from these NPC packs and be like, Gooba's running this store. You know what I mean? And so we have these NPCs, and they're a part of our foreign exchange student. It all started with Gooba, which we also made with our patrons. And so we're just really excited to get that off the ground. And so each month our top tier Patreon will get a new NPC pack. And in fact, we're going to be making quite a few of them just because the world right now, we're expanding it so much and so quickly. And so there'll be more and more NPC packs as we go. And I think they're really beautiful the way that we have ended up doing them. They're kind of like little collectibles, you know. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you
they
you
turn
gotta
out
like
really cute.
catch them all.
The future ones will have like full butt. Like this one, we didn't have time to release it with all the character busts. I'm gonna go back and do them for those. But every time we release a character pack, it will have. Right now, it just has Ivar and Gooba's art, but in the future, we'll have each one of them will have their art for it. So
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest parts. I mean, the concepting of them takes time as well. And they're not just like flippantly thought of like, okay, let me roll a dice and randomly come up with some traits. Like these characters are like canonical in the world. You know what I mean? And so they have to fit really, really well. It's not something where it's like, oh, you just run into this random shopkeeper. It's like, no, these are NPCs that like live and have stories within the world. And so it's something that we take a lot of care with. And we're trying to do something a little bit different with our RPG, in which everything sort of matters, and that's a lot of lore to take in, but we want the world to feel really lived in. And so these NPC packs are a way to do that. Gooba started off like a joke, and now he's got his own crew, that's hanging out around Hugo and Marco, right? And so these are things that, as we build out the world, you guys have influenced, and so there'll be much more of that to come, because there's more cities besides Andromeda, and there's more countries besides Fortuna, and so we're really starting to expand that. And yeah, I'm really excited. I love writing them. I think that they're fun to do. It's really difficult. It's not as easy as you would think that it is, because you think like, oh, I'll just write a character in Flux Destiny. It's actually really difficult, because Flux Destiny is grounded in rules, in which you have to sort of make sure that you're following correctly. It's not as easy as just being like, well, I'll just make this up. You know what I mean? Because you're not making it up. You're filling things in, to a world that already exists, right? And so everything that we write for Flux Fantasy is actually really difficult. And I'm sure Chris has that feeling too. Well, he gets to create it as he wants, but he creates something and writes it in stone, and then later he's like, oh, I would rather it be easier or whatever, but that's the way that it is now.
Well, it's so true, because like just today I messaged Ella, and I was like, there was a particular rule that I'd never said anything publicly about in this universe, and I said, what do you think of this? And every time we talk about like canonizing anything, it's always a very careful decision. It's not something that's like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, because we try to think, well, how is it going to domino effect elsewhere? Like if we do that, like how is that going to affect future games people play? How is it going to affect future novels? How is it going to affect future? So all these things make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's why we have some really great conversations in the, I'll give you guys a little insight. I'll share one that we talked about today. It has always been my contention that, by the way, is the music okay for you guys? If it's too loud, tell me. Thank you guys so much for what you're saying. We really appreciate that, because we put a lot of thought into it. And I'll give you a little insight into one today that we had. So in the lore channel in Discord, if you're not in Discord, you absolutely need to come join our Discord. And there's a little, I don't know if you can see it, it's at the bottom, fluxfandom.com. If you're not already there, you should absolutely come. We were talking about, there were some questions going on in the lore channel about like Flux Destinies and how fish bowls work and things like that. And it's always been my thought, and I never canonized this, I never wrote this down anywhere, but that you cannot, just, if you have a Flux Destiny on a canvas, you can't just roll it up. And like, it's not like a picnic blanket, it's not like you can like just roll it up and then go somewhere else and unroll it. Yeah, and then it pops back up like a pop-up book. Like, it would like extinguish it if you were to do that, right? And that's a really important mechanic to figure out, to understand, because it affects what characters are capable of doing, right? So I wrote Ella because there was a conversation we were having in the lore channel about it, and I said, I've never written this publicly, but I said, this is what I think, right? How it works. And we deliberated on it a bit before I finally put the answer into the lore channel. So when we do the lore stuff, I want you to know that we're not, it's not flippant. It's like we put so much care into those things.
No, yeah, and we're not trying to be, and I know that this is a very beloved, group of people, but we're not trying to be like a Star Wars in which we just come up with cool things because they're cool and then later have to like deal with them. Like, that whole thing where like that guy in Cloud City is like running with that ice cream maker, you know what I mean? And then they had to come up with a whole thing about like, oh, there's credits in there and all this stuff.
Right.
And it's like, we don't want that. We want it to be like, why is he running with that? Why is he wearing that kind of costume? We don't want to just be like, oh, well, it looks cool that he's wearing a space helmet. Like, why? You know what I mean? There has to be sort of this reason, and there's so much world to remember, you know. It's as big of a world as ours is, and so we really try very hard to think about it, and also not to like retcon each other, because there's time, you know. Right now we're starting this divergence in which Chris and I are writing two separate parts of Flux Destiny. You know, he's writing about Hugo and Marco and their journey, and I'm writing, you know, about Flux Fantasy. And sometimes I'll get carried away and I'll write something that's like, well, that's world breaking, and we don't want that. We don't want it to be like, well, for Flux Fantasy you can do this, but that's not really true. Like, we don't want that. If it doesn't work in Flux Destiny, it doesn't work in Flux Fantasy, you know. And so there are things that have to be sort of probable in both. And I hope you guys don't mind these behind the scenes where I'm just like rambling about how we make the product. I hope that this is enjoyable to you as you're watching, Chris. I just like realize I'm like talking and just like
No,
word
I think it's
vomiting so
cool.
much.
Where do you get to see that kind of stuff? You know, like
Yeah,
I think it's important because for me, when you play Flux Fantasy, I want you to feel like you are in that world. I don't want it to feel like, oh, here's the RPG as its own thing. I want you to feel like I'm in the same world that Marco and Hugo are in, right?
yeah,
You know, I want you to feel like, oh, we cross this. Like, if there is a location in the main books and you happen to have a story that, because by the way, when the next book comes out, Ella and I were talking about the stories that are going to be part of that, you know, that are going to be part of the book release, and there will be playable stories that you can play that actually coincide with the next book, so you can feel like you were there, right?
yeah.
You can feel like you were there in the same place that the mainline story was happening. So
Well, and it's a perfect example. These NPCs, like, Gooba's with Hugo in this drawing. You know what I mean? Like, these take place at the same time. And so when I was writing these, it was not a flippant case of like, oh, well, these happened 30 years ago, so it doesn't really matter. It's like, no, this is very particular, you know, and thought through, because they're connected. You know what I mean? Gooba might be a Flux Fantasy character, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't fit with
right.
Hugo, you know, because he clearly does. He's literally in the picture right now with him, you know, so he has to fit. And so, you know,
Absolutely.
there's pieces that we have to, you know. And it's not easy, because sometimes you make a decision and you go, that's I've decided that that's the way that it is, and you go, well, we didn't get to talk about that very much, but I guess that's the way that it is, you know. But we do our best to think literally everything through. I mean, from how people wear their clothes, to what they eat, to what they drink, to their commute, to what cities are like, to currency. I mean, I probably know, I don't want to like say this, but like, I think I would know more about Flux Destiny at the end of all this than I will know about our own world. Because like, there's just, you know, it's so big. There's so much. Like, I don't think I could name every country in our own world, but I think that I could get a lot of them in Flux Destiny, and that's just the way that it is, you
That's
know.
so funny.
I mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just as big in some cases, and in some cases we have to think about it even more than a normal person. Like, Hugo doesn't know about some of these other countries. I don't think he could name all the countries, but like, we know them, you know. And
Right.
it's a case of you have to know it so well, you know, if you're gonna, and we're gonna make mistakes, you know. Especially, I'm especially gonna make mistakes, you know. There's gonna be times where I'm GMing where somebody asks me something and I have to make it up right then and there, and then later I'll be like, you know what, I was wrong, that's not how that should have gone. But you know, it's not as easy as you think it would to just make a game in a world, because there's, I don't get to just make it up. You know, it's not like D&D where I get to just be like, well, I'll just, you know, they've said I could do this. It's like, this is a world that has, you know, so much in it.
Well, and is like, look what I just saw what Boofy was writing in the comments, and you know, we were really deliberate when we made a lot of decisions in the RPG, because we wanted it to we wanted that crossover was so important. It was so important that these two be that these could coincide in this way that even when we were making changes, when we were developing the mechanics for the game, I would port over some of those things and make tweaks to the main canon so that it would fit. You
Yeah.
know, only Chris will DM every Flux Fantasy game ever. That means if I make mistakes, see, what's interesting is like if I make mistakes, is that really a mistake? Right? Is that?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. Philosophy, if we're talking philosophy about that, the story, a lot about Flux Destiny also deals with like matters of ego and things like that. If I just wanted to be right and I made a mistake and I wanted to not look wrong, I may win, my ego may win in that moment, but what ends up happening is that I've canonized something that shouldn't exist in the universe, right?
Yeah.
And then it starts screwing things up. So, I have to be very careful about my own decisions and what I say too.
And yeah, and just to be clear, we're hard on ourselves. If you guys, GM Flux Fantasy, you should not put these restrictions on yourself. When I'm writing a game, I have to write a game that's canon. When you write a game, you should bend the rules because you get to have fun with it, and you should bend the rules, because that's sort of the fun part about making your own story. So we're talking about purely from like a I work for Chris standpoint, and not like a this is what you have to do to be a good GM. You should absolutely, if you are GMing Flux Fantasy, you should go in and be like, I like this part, well, I don't like this part, you know what I mean? And you should change it and do things the way that you want to do them. As long as you talk to your players and you're like, hey guys, I've changed this thing, it's totally fine, and you should do it because that's part of the fun. It's like a Lego set. We're making the set perfect and showing you how to make a robot. But if you don't want to make a robot, then you go do whatever you want to do. Because they're your pieces to play with.
See, I really like how you put that because I think that's so important that one of the big things that I wanted to do was to let people. I wanted to give this universe this kind of foundation so that then that's the hard part, right? The universe, that's very hard. Like all this hard work to develop this has been done, so now you can enjoy making characters and stories, right? Which is really fun to do that part. But one of my main objectives behind all this was so that you can have fun storytelling and do things, right? And that means even if you got to bend the rules to play, that's where you exercise your creativity too. Like you'll see me say things in the lore channel that are canon, right? And say, okay, this is how things work. But if you want to invent, if you want to find a way to make it work in your game, you can. It forces you to be creative, right? And come up with explanations as to how you would justify that. Because if you can justify something that breaks the canon but is really convincing, then you're a really good writer, right? Because if you get the other people who understand the lore to accept that and buy into that and go, okay, I can buy that. That means you did a really good job. So
yeah, exactly.
Poor Hugo.
We beat up Hugo a lot.
He doesn't look so hunky right now, does he? We
No, he
went from
doesn't.
we went from hunky Hugo yesterday to this like completely destroyed Hugo. So oh, it's like it's funny. I was seeing what Jacoby was writing in the comments, like watching like Jacoby had come up with all these characters that he was sharing with us, and it's like working with the framework that was already there. He had developed all this stuff. It was just amazing. I remember sitting with Ella going, did you see all that? Remember the conversation? I was like, did you see what he created? Like all this, it's crazy. You know,
Yeah.
how
Well,
much
and
would
it's such it plays into the idea that we have, which I hope that you guys feel, in which that you are such a collaborative process of what we do, that we're not just going to abandon you and be like, oh, we made this world, see you later. You know what I mean? That we like looking at the stuff that you guys have made, because like there's no way Chris and I could come up with 7 billion people. You know what I mean? That's not how it works. You know what I mean? Like we can't do that. So when you guys fill the world with these people, it gives it so much life, and it gives it so much. I like every time I see an OC, I imagine them in the world, and I'm like, yeah, that fits, that's
Oh,
it works.
absolutely. I think that's such a great way. What you said is so fun because that's so true. Like Ella will tell me, "Hey, did you see this new OC that was in?" And I see all the stuff. I may not respond to everything just because of the time, but I want you to know I see everything. And she's always sharing with me, and we're always like marveling at the stuff you guys make because it Ella, I don't think I could have said it more beautifully than you did. It is like filling the world with life, you know.
Yeah, and it what I really enjoy about you guys doing it is that it feels purposeful, and it doesn't feel like egotistical. Like it doesn't feel like, well, look at my OC. My OC can do this. You know what I mean? But like genuinely sharing them and being like, hey, like, what do you guys think? Like this is, this person wants to help others, or this person, his dream is this, and seeing all of that, to see like the pieces of life from your own stories, is so important to us, that you guys get to sort of fill out the world in the way that you would rather see it. If you want to be a super cool spy, then you do it, and we like to see you guys do that, because here's the thing, is that the world sometimes is kind of crummy, and you guys know that, and we see the hardships that some of you guys go through on the Discord, and we feel for you, and what we try our best to do is be like, well, come escape that for a little while, and go into Flux Destiny, and like they've got their own hardships, but it's a fun hardship to go through. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. Other people's problems, right?
Other people's problems,
Other people's
like Hugo's
problems.
problems, are pretty.
Yeah.
He's being squeezed to death right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great way to put it. That's a really great way to put it. And sometimes people come up with things like I don't know if Rio is on here, but right now, but I think he was coming up with this like special like government agency. Did you see all that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Ella? Like the stuff he was like, I was like, I think it's called Eclipse. I think is what, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. He came up with all this like cool, fan lore for this, and then came up with these characters that went with it, and it was just cool. It
Yeah,
was just cool to see that.
yeah. It's we take time to look at that kind of stuff, because we're not building it alone. We can't. Um, And so when you guys do stuff, it really does make our day. We have to stop every time. And we hope we get to a point where we we have to spend whole days on it. You know what I mean? Where we have
Right.
to spend a full day and like look at everybody's stuff, because it's so amazing. And we get the privilege to make this world for you guys, and when you enjoy it this much, it just is like, we can't even imagine it. I can't you can't imagine the smile on my face every time a book gets sold, from Flux Fantasy, because the work we've put into it is so we're so proud of it. I mean, that's the only way that I can put it, is that we're so proud of it, and we want people to play it, because we think that it's good, and we enjoy it, and we love when you guys like it, and we hope that you like it. So yeah, and when we finally do like our merch and our shirts, and you guys are out there in the world wearing them, and wearing our pins and stickers and stuff, it's gonna, spread the word and get
Right.
more people into our lovable community. And when we do a Hugo squeezable plush, of course,
Of course, it'll be super squeezable. Don't worry.
his
You'll be
eyes
able
will pop
to
out of his head.
you'll be able to pop his head off just like that. Don't worry, I got you covered. I remember when we did the first Hugo plushies, and when those first started selling, and I think those pictures are still up on Facebook. I started getting pictures from everyone with their Hugos, and I think was it Jessica? I think it was Jessica or somebody took their Hugo on like a multi-city tour and took pictures with Hugo, and
So
super
cute.
cute stuff.
Hugo deserves that.
He does deserve that.
We were just joking the other day about how he's our workhorse, and
Right.
how we make him do stuff for us because he's so popular. Just you, just you guys wait until we reveal some of the other characters that you guys will like. Then maybe Hugo could take a break.
Yeah. It's like no, son, you got work to do.
He's like, please, please
Please
stop
get.
putting me in this situation.
Aw, don't worry, Boovie. There will be new Hugo plushies. There will be. There absolutely will be. This is looking cute. This turned out good. I love this brush, and this pen is unbelievable. It glides. Okay.
Not as much as if you had a glove, but yeah. I'm gonna
I
get
don't
you
need
one.
a glove. I
We
don't need
need
a
to
glove.
get you
What
one.
did I tell you? Street smart.
Street smart.
I'm a street artist. Okay. I learned in the streets how to draw. I don't need no
Honey.
fancy gloves, and I see my pen. Look, I used the same nib for 9 years.
Yeah. And that worked out really, really well for you.
It did up until 9 years. A Gooba plush would be cute, wouldn't it? So
I do like Gooba a lot.
it's funny because when I was finishing the cards today, the NPC cards, I had to figure his weight, and I was like, he's pretty tall. Like if he's just standing up, he's probably about 6'2", you know.
Hmm.
But I was like, how much would he weigh? Because he's got like, if you look at
Tail.
his back half, everything beyond his waist is gigantic, right? I was like, he's not gonna weigh as much as like a normal human male who's like 6'2". It's gonna be like almost double or maybe 2.5 times that.
Hmm.
And so the way I did it was that I went to go look online, and I said, okay, what is the average male 6.2 weigh? And then I figured that. Then I started like looking at, okay, if you take someone like that, and like I think I came up with 460 pounds. I think is where I came to. He's big.
Yeah, you should have just looked up. What we should have done is been like weight of large male seals, and
Right.
then been like gone from
I
there
guess
because he's
so.
more
I guess
animal.
so. I guess so.
Yeah,
Maybe.
but I feel like that. Listen, I'm. You talk about my weaknesses. One of them is karaoke, and the other is guessing weight. I have no idea. I have no clue. We should do one of the game nights. You should just show me pictures and be like, how heavy is this person? I will
That is
get
so funny.
every single one
That's a
wrong.
fun idea. I like that.
Every single one of them wrong. You'd be like, how heavy is Hugo? And I'd be like, 250, and you'd be like, what? And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know weight. I don't get it. I don't understand. There are some, like the Olympics is happening, right? They're like, oh, she's 6'3", and I'm like, oh yeah, like 160 pounds. They're like, she's 98 pounds. I'm like, 90 what? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand. I don't get it. I don't. I don't.
So
I
it's
don't. I
funny you say
can't look
that
at somebody and,
because,
and see it.
well, it's funny you say that because because of my obsession with like lore and wanting to have things be like as accurate as possible, I've spent a lot of time
Mhm.
studying that. What makes things heavier?
Mhm.
Obviously, like males typically weigh more than females because of the muscle mass, and their bone
Yeah.
density bones are more dense. So males typically weigh more, and if just from that standpoint, if you had like a 1-to-1 comparison. But I saw Mal was asking about Lucky. So Lucky, I think if I remember, I can't, don't hold me to this, but it had something to do with a car. I was like, okay, well, how much does like a Toyota Corolla weigh? You know? And I was like, if I take like a quarter of that weight, at least a quarter or half of that weight is how I came up with it, you know? So I think Lucky weighs like 800 pounds or something. I forgot what exactly I don't remember his canon weight. But it's a lot. He's not, you don't want him to fall on you. Okay. He's a big guy.
See, and you'd ask me, and I'd be like, I don't know. I would be like 300. Like, I don't understand. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't know why my brain, like, if I was in Flux Destiny, I would not be a clockwork escape artist. Let's just say that. Like,
Well, you don't have to
just
worry, Ella. I'll handle that part of the department.
okay.
I'll handle those things.
I will just be creative. I will come up with devastating character arcs, and the weight won't matter.
That's
You
so
know, you'll
funny.
cry the weight off.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
If you go look, I think Hugo's canon weight is in his wiki article,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to, like, I obsessed over that, him and Marco's weight and height for a long time before
Mm-hmm.
like settling on it. And I like went through all these like calculations and like averages and
Mm-hmm.
like to try to find the one that worked for me because like, you know, and the reason is not just to be pedantic, you know. It was like I'm not just going to be like, you know, worried about stupid, you know, details, but I wanted it to be real, you know. I
Yeah.
wanted it to be as real as possible, you know.
And you know, people hold themselves differently. That's like a really, you know, that's a big part of it. You know, depending on how athletic they are. You know what I mean? People hold
Right.
themselves. That's one of the big things that we learn in theater. Now that's where I've learned, you know, how to use weight, you know, is you change where you hold your weight depending on how you walk. And this is very nitpicky theater stuff. This is not necessarily what's in Flux Destiny, but it's true when you're creating a character. The first thing that we did in theater was how they walked, and it's such a silly thing to be like how they walked. Like, what about their voice or how they think? And it's actually how you walk is so important to your personality. It's about where you hold your weight, it's about what you lead with, what part of your body you lead with. It's so
Right.
telling, you know, in who you are by how you walk. And that's why in animation you see you ever see somebody be like, "Oh, well I did a walk cycle for this person." It's because it's so crucial to what their character is that that's one of the first things they do. And also, of course, it's very difficult to make a walk cycle for somebody in animation, but it's also so key to their character. I mean, you look up, you know, go in and look up different cycles for different Disney characters, and it will tell you what you need to know about them. You know what I mean?
So
Um,
true. So
like
true.
the way that Gaston walks is very different from the way that Belle walks, and it's because of their character, and not necessarily just because they're different genders or anything, or they have different attitudes. It's about, you know, it's about their character, and it has so much to do with the person, you know, that they are. And yet I can't think of weight. You know what I mean? I know how important it is, and yet I don't understand it. And you know, I just need to get better at it. But the way that I think about a character is about how they, you know, how they lead with their body, not necessarily their heaviness or anything. So,
No,
little acting lesson for you. You know, if you're ever going to try to imitate somebody, the first thing that you're going to want to do is try to figure out how they walk. And that will tell you a good portion of how they move. So,
absolutely. I saw Boofy was asking about the lines. Yeah, so I'm doing this at such high resolution. So if you're one thing that sometimes I notice a lot of artists neglect or they forget is, I'm not saying you do this, Boofy, but some people don't do like their resolution properly. Like this is I do my drawings no less than 300 DPI. And so usually everything is at such a high resolution that I can manipulate. Now, I will only do that on really small details that things won't notice. Like I would rather redraw a face than to like try to scale it up. If I took Hugo's head and tried to scale it up right now to double its size, you would start seeing the difference. You would start noticing that there's something wrong, and the line weight, which it would show in the line weights, and you would start seeing a little bit of pixel artifacts from that.
You're getting it all tonight. You're getting theater, how to create characters, how to do art. This is a buffet, guys. A
This is a
buffet of
buffet.
knowledge.
Oh, you did? So it depends. Like if you pull one of my images off Twitter or one of those other places, sometimes the resolution has been changed by Twitter when it's uploaded. So, if it gave you the right resolutions, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Sometimes it'll minimize the resolution and make it like 72. Normally the stuff you'll see on the internet is 72 DPI.
Mm-hmm.
But for print ready, like whenever I put stuff up in the print store, it's at least 72 300 DPI. And whenever I scan those actually whenever my old Copic pieces, those are even higher. I scan those at like 600 DPI. It's like it gets to a point where it doesn't really matter anymore because it's so high fidelity, but I do it anyway just to try to get it as authentic as I can. This is going
Goofy
to be,
saying
I
that.
cannot wait to do this one. This one's going to be fun
I can't wait either.
to color it. I told you, and Ella's been good at making me keep my promises. So
I have. It's true.
she does not, like, I live in constant, she's exploiting my Catholic upbringing and making me feel guilty all the
It's
time.
because you're such a free spirit. And you're like, I don't know if I feel like this today. And I'm like, that's not how this business works. That's not like, I don't know, I don't know if I want to color this today. And I'm like, we promised that we would, like we have to. You know what I mean? Like, you guys pay our bills, so
Yeah,
sometimes there's things
exactly.
that we promise, and it's not that I don't love your free spirit. That's not what I'm saying. Your
No, I
free
love it.
spirit is
No,
the
I
creativity.
need I need that structure. So I love when Ella's kind of like the teacher. She's like, "Is my homework done?" or whatever. I'm like, "Oh God, she's
I
gonna
do
wake up and
message you.
ask."
I do message you
Ow!
quite often.
What's that?
I said I do message you quite often. Like, hey, did you
She's
finish
like,
this?
"Did you do this?" I'm like, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, she's
No.
gonna ask me if I did this, and I haven't done it yet.
You never update me. I need to know. It's
I
important. I'll
update
give.
you all the time. I'm
To
always
be
telling you.
fair, I do give Chris more tasks than he can do in a day to see which ones he gets done. Sometimes I'll give Chris a bunch of tasks and then he'll come back to me with a task that was not on the list. And I'll go, Chris, priorities, what happened here? And he'll be like, I just got really in the zone with this thing that I didn't even need to do. And so then we'll be like a day behind with tasks. But it's okay, things
Yeah,
happen.
but it's usually important though, right?
It usually is, well,
It's
sometimes,
usually
yes.
something that's like, oh, we needed to do
That is true. Sometimes, though,
this.
every once in a while, it'll be something that I'll sit there and it looks amazing. It's some cool thing, something that Chris has drawn that's like, hey, I just whipped this up. I took a whole day to do it. And it will be amazing and so unnecessary to the project that we're working on currently. And but it's amazing. You know what I mean? Because then you think of all these possibilities of things that you can do that you didn't need to be doing, but it's okay. You know what I mean? That's why you're a free spirit. Sometimes I just have to let you do those things, because it's like that's where you have to, guys. You don't understand. You have to take breaks. You cannot be doing the same thing over and over and over again. If you hit a writer's block, go take a walk. Go do something unnecessary because it will help you so much. And so we have to put in these moments. Like Chris lets me write stuff, you know what I mean? And he lets me do other stuff. And if I didn't and I was looking at spreadsheets all day, I'd go crazy because I'd be looking at numbers all the time. You know what I mean? And so
Well,
sometimes you
and
just
that's why
have
sometimes
to.
I do those other things that are not on the list because I'm like, I need to step away for a minute from
Yeah.
this because it's like, oh my gosh, it's like after a while you're like, because the stuff we have to do is so tedious. Like doing those cards, for example, today was such tedious work to build them. I was telling Ella, I was like, I'm dying over here. It's so tedious to put like because I had to design the templates and then populate the templates and then make sure that I got everything that Ella wanted to get in the templates and make changes and things like that. And then at the last minute I'm like, oh, I want to change so that each one of them is a different color, and then I got to go make different templates for that. And anyway, so it's just a lot of stuff.
Well, Boofy's asking what kind of writing I do. I do writing for the RPGs and stuff, so I write all of the stories that come out. Currently, I have written them, and more are coming. There's several like in the pipeline that need to be edited and stuff. So, and Chris lets me do that. First of all, because he trusts me to do that, because I've proven myself as a writer, hopefully. But also, I have to do that for my own sort of sanity, because we are literally like looking at, we do so much different kinds of research and all kinds of stuff. So um all kinds of writing. You can't get it out of me yet, but you'll see soon. And I hope that you enjoy my writing. I hope one day, it's my goal that you won't be able we'll put something out and we won't author it, like we won't say who wrote it, and I want to see if people can figure out who wrote it. I'm sure they'll be able to, but one day it's my goal that they will be able to figure out who
Right.
wrote it,
That'd
because
be
I'm
that'd
trying
be
to
fun.
yeah, I'm trying to emulate, your style as much as I can.
Well, what I love about Ella's writing is that she's very good at one of the things that people really enjoyed about Fortuna's Rings was the fact that it had this range of emotions, right, that was happening. You had like happy things and funny things and sarcasm and drama and sad moments and all these things all in one. You're in a roller coaster. People want to be on a roll, like that's what makes a roller coaster fun is the unexpected things you go through, right? It's not
Yeah.
just this. And that's one thing about storytelling. And Ella writes in a very similar way. Like the tutorial game is a lot of fun because it goes from being kind of this wholesome, like there's this thing going on, and then there's clearly some, misguided youths who are causing trouble at the Flux Destiny fair, and they create all sorts of problems, and then it gets really dramatic, toward the end. And then at the end, I remember like when I read the end and Ella like woven, whatever the right word is, weaved in, like these themes that we've talked about in Flux. Like she weaved them in such a pretty way. It was so nice, and that gave the tutorial game a lot of like, gave it like this nice, you know, depth to it. It wasn't just a tutorial. I mean, it is, the tutorial game is called Lunar Showdown, but it's not like it's not titled the tutorial game. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just love that. Oh, I remember that, Boofy, from watching the
Hey,
replay.
no spoilers. We've got people playing tonight, y'all.
Yeah. I'm really curious how that how that's gonna. I can't wait to hear about that tonight because I know we've got a couple of our friends in here on there. You have no idea how much I'm loving this pen.
I'm so glad. Because I was sitting here and I literally wrote down. So I take a lot of notes. Um, you know, I always write down things that you say in the lives that I end up like using later, or little notes. And I wrote down, Chris needs new pen, possible Christmas gift? Question mark, question mark. Because
Aww.
I was like worried, and I I just was like, so I write down all of these things. You guys, you would, if you looked at my notes for the craziness that we do from day to day. I'm one of the worst people that you want taking notes. I'm super thorough, but I'm like erratic. Like I literally like one note will be in one corner, then one note will be in another corner, and then I'll draw a big arrow between the two. Like I write like
I'm
I
the
have
same
never written
way.
before.
I'm the same way though, because I usually end up pulling out a piece of paper. Like I actually have a notebook, right, that I am constantly taking notes. But for some reason, I can't write it like really orderly. Like I start writing all over the place, all over.
Well, you know what it is? It's like mind mapping because I can't
It is.
if I put it in one if I put it in one section and then I have some because Chris and I are like we play tennis with our ideas. So I'll hit something to him and then hit something back and then later he'll serve me something that's like the same vein that we were talking about 10 minutes ago and we've already moved on. You know what I mean? So we like come back and we circle around to things so often and we'll get on these tangents where we come up with these really good ideas and then I've run out of space and then I have to like, you know what I mean? So you have to do it in like sections where you're like, okay, this section is for Flux Fantasy, and this section is for Chris and I are just goofing off, and this section is like sketch ideas. You know what I mean? Because like we'll bounce around so quickly. Like Chris and I's brains are like, I don't know, they're like, you ever play those games? Those like mobile games where you like hit a ball into something and then it turns into a bunch of balls. That's our brains. That we're like a mobile game in
It's
which
so funny.
so much is happening, and both of us are like that. And so neither of us are very like we could talk about one thing for hours, and yet it will have 100 different ideas. Because
Right.
we we start like going off on these tangents and stuff, and some things will be like, oh, that's funny, that would be funny if we did that, don't you think it would be funny? And then we start to think about it more and we're like, you know what, that thing you said the other day that was like a joke, like we're doing it. Like we're gonna
That's
do that
right.
now. So it's like everything's a note. Everything that Chris says is like I listen, because he'll say something and then I'll just go do it, and then we'll see how he feels about it. And some ideas are good and some don't stick.
Well, you got to try everything, right?
Yeah.
So I'm actually laughing because as I was, this is kind of funny. As I was drawing this part of his uniform, it made me think of I was many years ago when I was in corporate America still. I remember being in this meeting and someone explained to me, I don't know if you've ever been in like certain like meeting rooms or whatever where they have these conference tables, but then they'll have these like
Yes.
panels
Yes. Yeah.
under it. They're
Yep.
called modesty panels. Did you know this? And so obviously, because it's where the position of the panel is, right? You don't want people like looking under the table and like
Yeah.
looking at your. So I laugh because every time I draw this little like the flap on the tunic, I think of the modesty panels from from the meeting. And I almost started breaking, like I almost broke down when I heard that that's what they were called, because it was such a, like, I was like, that has a name and that's a thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a decoration thing. I had no idea that it had a functional purpose.
It's so weird. It's so That's hilarious. And this again to showcase our brains. This is what he's thinking about as I'm going on this rant
Right.
about
Right.
our brains and stuff. And this, you know, you have to find. I hope that you guys take these and you think about it, because we're giving so much in depth about how companies and stuff work, and this is how it is. If you don't find a company in which you can pause to find jokes and stuff, you're in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Seriously. One day I want to get like screenshots of all the like stupid stuff that we send each other, like in the middle of a very busy workday, and just like publish it just to be like, you guys, if you're not in a place like this, you know, you're in the wrong place.
I, something happened today. It happened actually. Something really funny happened today because Ella said something. Oh, I did something. Or no, I finished, I delivered something, and she's like, I'm so proud of you, or something. And I know she was being sincere, but I was like, I wrote, I'm eye rolling. I was like, eye roll, thank you. And she goes, don't you eye roll at me, mister. And then I sent her a cat, which,
You
as you
sent me
guys
the
know, I'm
funniest.
constantly putting cat pictures.
It was a cat that was like, I don't even know how to describe. Was
Like
like
it had been scolded or something.
you look at it, it's golden. It was making the face that it like looked like Chris. Like it would like it did. It like looked like you. You know. You know how sometimes cats smile. You know, and they're like front. They're like top and bottom teeth kind of like connect over each other. You know, and they're like, it looks really goofy. That's what it was like. I'm always telling Chris I'm proud of him, by the way, and sometimes he's like,
Aw.
oh yeah, and then sometimes he's like whatever. He's such a teenager,
I
you
know, I'm
know.
being like a rebellious teenager. Like, whatever.
You used to be a lot harder on yourself. Like you used to be like, "Hey, make fun of me," you know, in this moment. And I'd be like, "What are you talking
I
about?"
used to
You
say
know what I
that.
mean?
I used to
No,
say
like
that.
you used to be like, "Whatever, like it's fine if you don't like it, if you like make fun of me or whatever on this live." And I was like, "Why would I do that? Like, I like the way that this looks." You know what I mean? And you'd be like, "Oh, okay," you know.
That's so funny. I don't. That's right. I think you're right. Yeah. I think. Oh, that's right. I did say that. I did say that. Now I'm remembering that stuff. So, Boofy's asking how we had met.
You and I.
Yeah.
So, I was doing work in animation, and I was a I was doing a lot of different stuff at this particular company. I was the RPG writer and I was the production manager, which basically means like doing the full scheduling, and I help with like the budget and that kind of stuff. And I was also an animation coordinator. I was a coordinator for like all kinds of stuff, which basically means like the go between the artists and like the people directing them, you know, to make the schedules and to give notes and record meetings and all that kind of stuff. So I was always like I was in between creative and all that kind of stuff. And then I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but um my like animation right now is not in a good place. And so my company fell through and I was laid off. Literally, like I just was called into the office and they were like, "Hey, your last day was yesterday," and I was like, okay." And so I left that day, and I had moved to the state that I was in to be there, and then I was looking for stuff, and you know, I was looking for anything really because you know the economy is getting a job is really difficult, and I didn't have a lot of hope. I was actually in a really interesting and dark place, you know, because I had not had a job for like 3 weeks, and for you know somebody living in a really expensive place, because I was like a producer basically of this show, you know what I mean? Like to go from having like a lot of money to like nothing in a very short amount of time was really difficult. And so it was really funny. I just was like looking on a job site and I had clicked something that had caused me to then scroll and click something else. Like it wasn't even on my main job feed or whatever. And Chris's ad was out there and it said like RPG and community, you know, writer. And I was like, okay, maybe, you know what I mean? Because I had applied for a bunch of these and like I was like, okay, maybe. And then literally within 30 minutes, I got an email from Chris and he was like, I want to meet you tomorrow morning. And I was like, okay. And so then we got on a call and Chris and I were just like laughing and having a good time and talking with each other. And I thought he was very impressive, like in his, you know, office, because like it's intimidating, you know. Like I was like, you know, he was very official and all this stuff, and then we kind of broke down into like becoming really good friends like immediately. And then in fact we started to run over his next interview, and he was like, he was like, "We've got to. I'm gonna call you back like later today," and I was like, "Okay." And
Oh, I
so then,
forgot about that. That's right. That did
yeah,
happen.
and so then you called me back like later that day, and then we had another conversation for a long time. And it honestly, guys, it was just that we liked each other so much. Like, obviously, my experience and stuff like writing and all that was appealing, but we just really vibed really well with each other, and we would just, because he needed somebody that was more than just a writer. He needed a lot of things. He needed a social media person, he needed an editor, he needed somebody to do his lives with. He basically just like needed a partner with his company. And so there was a lot of shoes to fill, and so it was a tough ask, but I felt, and I really liked his workplace, and I especially liked Flux Destiny because that was the thing that he got me into it at first. And I thought really hard about it. It was not just like, because then he offered me the job pretty soon after that, and it wasn't like out of desperation. You know what I mean? Like, I thought very carefully about it because I have worked for some really tough creative companies, and I didn't want to do that again. Because you sell your soul a little bit. When you work for a company like that just sort of uses you, and I didn't want that. And so I thought about it, and I really talked with Chris, and we talked about our plan, and yeah, and then that was it. And then we immediately started working. And then during the interview, he was like, I think it was the very end of April. And so he was like, hey, so I want to get Flux Fantasy out by June. And I was like, okay, that's a month from now. So, I was like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing, and so he had a lot of very ambitious goals. And I think if I was younger or at a weaker place, I think I would have been like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because it was a very tough ask. He is a very difficult thing. And so, yeah, that's what. And I'm very lucky. I've never liked a job more than I've liked this job. So, a very good question, Buffy. I hope that answered your question. That was a really long-winded way to say that I interviewed for the job. You know,
Some of that I
um,
hadn't heard yet. I didn't hear some of that yet. So that was interesting. And it's funny that you when Ella I think interviewed right at the end because I'd been interviewing
mhm.
many people and I couldn't find the right person yet. And I've run several other companies before in my career, and I'm very much of the standpoint of like I'm a hire slow person. I don't hire because I know what like a lot of people want to just like bring in people just to fill in a role, and that's like the worst thing you could possibly do. And I have had to fire lots of people in my career because other people who I ran their companies for were very bad at hiring, and they were also very bad at like managing people. And I had to like I have a pretty big body count of people I've had to let go from other companies, and I don't like that. I don't like to do that. It's not fun. But part of it is like hiring is being like deliberately good at hiring the right people, like being thoughtful about it. And it's like
Mm.
you leave that. Oh, you do not hire. Um, and chemistry is a big deal for me. There's plenty of chemistry and what's it called? Um, hold on, the word is slipping my mind right now. Integrity is a big part of it too, because I don't I don't like you can have people who are I know many people who are really capable or smart but are really terrible people, you know, and you
Yeah.
don't want to work with them. And and Ella is one of those strange combinations where you have all those together. You have because it's not often that you'll find someone who's really really fun to work with, who's flexible, who's also like loves the universe and takes her work very seriously and treats it like it's her own and enjoys it and is insanely dependable. Like I'm the one telling her sometimes like you need to take a break. You need to like this weekend. I told her this weekend she was starting to get sick the other day because she'd been working so hard. I was like, you need to go rest. Because we were going a million miles an hour to finish that RPG, and we did it. Right? We did it. We got it done. And it was an incredible, challenge to get that done, but we did it.
Yeah.
But we were also very deliberate in the way that we approached producing it, because under different circumstances, it would not be possible to do that project. But because I trusted Ella very much and her expertise in doing that, I let her go and just go do it. Go do your part. I'll do my part, and we split the difference.
It's
So
hard
we
to find.
managed to get that done.
Yeah. And Chris is one of the most forgiving and trusting bosses that I have ever had, and it, that phrase, like, it takes a village, is really really true when it comes to creative works. And I have never been trusted like he trusts me. I've often been shut down quite a bit when I've come with new ideas or things. Hey, I want to just go on this. I think I can do it. And it there's a lot of cases in which people above you think that, oh well, I invented this world, so I know it better than you. And Chris doesn't do that. He lets me into the world a lot, and he lets me dig around and find holes and fix them. And he's so trusting with me. And there's times he's put his foot down, of course, but he doesn't treat me like I don't understand the world, that only he can understand it because he created it. You know what I mean? And that's something that's super super important when you're doing something as crucial as an RPG, in which we had to make a world a playable game. It's a difficult task, and especially in the time frame that we've done it. I don't know if anybody could have done that, what we did. And we were like the
No, I
perfect.
don't think so. We were the combination of our um, talents, I think, made it possible, and the fact that we could just, trust each other to do it,
Yeah.
to do what we had to do. There's a lot of the trust is a lot that goes into it. The
And we
trust is
just
so
knew.
important when you're doing something really crazy like what we were doing, Flux Fantasy,
Hmm.
that you have to be able to trust the people you're working with. And um, I know that Ella is working her ass off on all this stuff. Like, I know she is. Just it's just like I just know it. So I know that she's doing all that stuff and more. And so um, one of my favorite phrases to use whenever, especially I'm working with someone or hiring, it's like, I need someone that I know I can sleep at night, knowing that you know, they're doing their part, and that their part is handled.
Yeah.
Like having Ella's help with the Discord community, for example, is a huge help to me. I can sleep at night now knowing that I have help there, and that you guys have someone you can trust, that you can talk to, you know. And it does take, and to what Boofy is saying there, it does take it does take a lot of trust. Like, I trust her very much because she showed respect to the source material. Like, she had, you don't know how many people I had interviewed who didn't even go look at it, right? And it's like, well, that's number one. That's the first sign that is like, do you even respect this? Like, did you even look at it? Even after I specifically said, hey, you should read this before we meet, right? And Ella knew all of it. She had gone through the whole thing. She understood everything that was going on. And I think I remember telling you this, Ella, like, one of the big things for me was, not every universe is for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone is a Star Wars fan. Not everyone is a Harry Potter fan. Not everyone is that's okay, right? Not everyone's going to be a Flux Destiny fan. That's okay. And I don't take that as an insult if this world doesn't vibe with someone, right? But if they're going to work on it with me, it has to be something they connect with, because this is not, we're too small of a little studio for this to be like, this isn't a 9 to 5 kind of job.
No.
Ella's
Yeah.
constantly working, and she does it because she likes to do it. It's not because I'm forcing her, you have to be
Yeah.
up at this time to do it. No, she does it because she enjoys doing it. I think I might be putting words in her mouth, but
No,
at
it's
least I think
true.
that's the case.
No, it's true. The last job that I worked at, I was there from exactly when I said I was going to be there to the moment that my contract said I had to be there, because it was so hard to do it. And not that I didn't love what I was doing, but there was not room to love it. They didn't.
Right.
They didn't. there
Yeah,
was no
because you're
ill
treated
will
like a
there.
child.
You know
You're
what I mean?
treated like you're in school,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
And
But
it's
see, the
and
problem with that, you know where that comes from? I have been I've been doing this for 20 years now, and what I've noticed in some of the worst managers and executives I've ever worked with was they all that comes from a place of ego and insecurity. No one can, if you can't let someone look smarter than you got a problem, right? Not everyone knows everything. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm not some expert in everything. I know what I know. I have years of experience making big decisions, like on $1 million things, because I've worked on huge projects, but I don't know everything, and I'm okay with not knowing. And there's a freedom in saying I don't know and not being embarrassed, right? About saying that you don't know. And turning to people who do know. Like Ella has lots of experience in this particular space, and she knows RPGs, and she's been a GM for years, and she's also an amazing writer. So there's certain things where I'll have a vision for something, and then she'll present something else as an alternative. I go, you know what, you're right. I didn't think of it that way, because she brought a different perspective with her experience. And I don't need to be right about it. I don't need to be the one like, well, it didn't come out of my mouth. Like I don't
yeah.
need to be right about that. And that took a while, because when I was younger, my ego got way more in the way. But now I'm like, oh, right. You're right. Let's do that. I mean, she can tell you how many times I've gone, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Let's not
Well,
do that.
and Chris does the same thing back. I had presented a story just the other day, that we hacked up. You know what I mean? Because I rely on him to tell me, because he's an author. You know what I mean? And yeah, I've got some stuff under my belt as well, but he's more experienced in that. You know what I mean? And he's not just my boss. He's like a mentor. And this is not a job for everybody. It there's a lot of sacrifices that both of us have to make to be able to do it, and we love it, but it's not for everybody, and we're not saying it's for everybody. You know what I mean? It's really demanding and difficult, and there are a lot of wonderful perks. Like Chris is such a wonderful boss, you know but there are jobs that you just have to be like, listen, I'm fine working 9 to 5, and that's fine. If that's your thing, you should never feel bad about that being your thing. You can
Absolutely.
get by on a 9 to 5. You should get by on a 9 to 5.
Absolutely.
Don't do what we're
Absolutely.
doing. But if you have this sort of passion, and you have these partners who are around you, and that's the important part, is that you can't do it alone. You really can't. You have to have somebody who reads your stuff. You have to have somebody that looks at it with you. Chris reads the stories that I put out, and he comes out with better ideas than I had, because he's able to look at it from a non-toiling perspective. You know what I mean? There was a story that I was toiling on, I mean, just beating into the ground, and we played it, and Chris was like, well, what did you think about this? And I was like, duh. You know what I mean? Like, no, I didn't think about that. And it changed. I changed it because of what he was saying. And it's part about, and I never got that before. Like, I would do something, I'd present something, and it wouldn't even get on the table. Like when I was working on my other job, it wouldn't even get there. And that's fine. You know what I mean? Because they had their vision, and I was just sort of a pack mule. But it doesn't bode well, creatively, when you try to work like that. It's really, really difficult. And so, you know, finding somebody like Chris is like a diamond. It really is, and it's not always
Aww.
like that.
You hear that, guys? I'm a diamond. I'm
Well,
special.
I'm just saying, like, if you ever think like, I'd like to be sort of where Chris is one day, which I hope that you do have passions like that. You can't do it alone. You have to realize that you and that's one of the big themes of Flux Destiny, is that you can't do things alone. They will not turn out the way that you think. And I'm a big, you guys don't know this, I hope. I'm a huge introvert. Huge. Like, all this, a lot of acting is going into this. A lot of acting is going into being on camera and being in front of you guys and talking with you guys all the time. I'm a huge introvert. And yet, when I was writing stories by myself, they were always like, something was off, because I wasn't getting feedback. I was just being like, here you go, posting them, you know what I mean, or whatever. and they didn't work, because I didn't have anybody to look at it and be like, did you think about this other thing? Because I was greedy, because I wanted to be the best, I wanted to be the smartest. And Chris isn't like that. Like, he's a good boss in which he really listens, and he listens to you guys too. You don't know this all the time, but he listens to what you guys say. He listens to the things that you come up with, because he's not so arrogant in his thought that he has to make things up. You know what I mean? Or, oh, well, that's wrong just because, you said it. You know what I mean? He never does that. He always listens. So if you're ever going to do something creative, be a good listener. That's the most important thing. You have to be able to listen, because ideas, they really are coming from anywhere. And I hope that Chris thinks the product is better because we work on it together.
Oh my gosh. You were saying you're the diamond. How can I finding you is like, but finding you is the proof of the philosophy that I've had about hiring and about finding people. And you spend so much time at work that you should enjoy it, and it should be something that you want to put your passions toward. And that was when I founded this little studio, is that I wanted that we didn't feel like it was work. Yeah, of course there's days where we're doing stuff but even me, I'm not sitting back not doing anything. Like, they're like grinding with her and doing stuff, but we have a passion for it and we enjoy it and we do it. And it's infinitely better because of Ella's contributions. And
Aww.
I mean, remember, Ella's the one who came up with the mechanics for Flux Fantasy. She's the one who took that concept of what I was trying to do and made it something that could work. So I'm just very fortunate. But I think if there's anything that you guys get out of this, is that, like, I know that Ella has to go get ready for the game soon, but I just want to kind of say this, is that one of my best bosses I ever had, he was a tough boss, but he's a very good boss. And he's a friend and mentor to me to this day, who was the founder of Funimation. And he and I are he's a dear friend of mine, and I still, we talk all the time, and he's taught me a lot of things that I know. And I remember in one particular meeting, I don't remember what spawned this, but he happened to say this to someone during the meeting. You know that old saying, you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason? You know that?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't saying it in a way that was condescending. He was just kind of talking about how he thinks about meetings. It was because in that meeting, he's like, if you guys notice, I don't talk much when I'm talking in meetings. He goes, in fact, it's true. He'd always be in a meeting and just nodding his head, just nodding his head. And I think I may have asked him, I was like, I've noticed you're very quiet. And he said, and that's where he said, there's so much information he gets out of those meetings just by sitting and listening, and then he would take the things that we would learn out of those meetings and sometimes apply them or make a change. Like Ella was saying about how, I listen to you guys. Yeah, absolutely. I listen to you guys. You guys are on the ground. And we get all sorts of insight that I didn't think of before. And so I'm okay with changing. You have to be like the bamboo. You can't be like the oak, right? You got to be able to move. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you don't have convictions. It just means that you have to be willing to go, okay, this is not working. Let's try something else. And she and I are very good at that. She and I are very good at that. And it was huge character growth for me, because I'm the kind of person who likes things to be organized and with processes and whatever, right? Like, I like if you see my kitchen, like my drawers, everything has a purpose. So for me to be able to just go, okay, let's throw that out, try something else. I'm very proud of myself, because that's very, like, I'm fighting against my very nature to do those things. And I've gotten very good. Just like Ella says that now, like, I had no idea that she felt so introverted, because on day one, she offered to jump in and do the co-hosting of these things. And she did it so naturally that I would have never known that was the case. But that's kind of like with me and my, being able to just let go. I'm like, her and I were meeting before this, and we were talking about some important things about what we wanted to do. And we were literally considering tossing all our plans out the window. for a few
Yeah,
minutes. And I was so zen about it because you know
you
what?
were.
I saw this I saw this quote somewhere. It's like, I'm in my I don't know how, but I'm going to phase of my life. So that means that,
Yeah.
if we gotta throw everything out the window, so be it. Whatever.
We see ourselves. The thing that's really important is that Chris and I see ourselves already at the finish line. We know what it looks like. How do we get there? You know what I mean? We just have to. We've already seen it, you know,
Yeah,
and so we know it's going to happen. We just now we have to make sure that it comes true. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that Chris is a wonder. We always end up just complimenting each other at the ends of this, but it's important, because you don't get that all the time. But you have to sacrifice a lot sometimes to get that. Do I want the 9 to 5 or do I want a really great boss? And
yeah,
it's some of the key themes that we talk about all the time with Flux Destiny, and everything we talk about comes around to things that we are actually writing about all the time. It's like we go through something hard at work. Well, the next thing you know, it's in the book. Some instance that Chris and I have done personally, now ends up as a theme because we're real and we go through these things that you guys go through. So
absolutely. And we don't usually have the time to even have these kind of conversations, her and I, because we're always so busy. So that's why it's kind of nice that you guys bring that up because then we can actually talk about it. And then, Ella, if you need to go ahead. I'm gonna stream for a few more minutes, and I'm gonna get as far as I can. I know that you have to go, and I have kung fu shortly, so I
yeah.
have to I have to start getting
Well,
ready to go to kung fu.
thank you guys. This was fun. I like answering your guys' questions. If you have any more about what Chris and I do, or you're curious about animation or getting into something creative, let us know because this is the kind of stuff that we might not get to talk about later in our careers. So we're happy to do it now, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So I will see you guys later, and for those of you in the game, I will
Bye,
see you
Ella.
soon. Bye,
See
you
you later.
guys.
Have a good time, you guys who are in the game. I hope you have a great time at the game. Go have a good time. Uh,
Thank
that's
you.
gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see that replay. All right, see you guys. Well, I'm gonna stream for a few more minutes, so if you guys want to stick around, you're welcome to. I want to try to at least get Gooba's head done before I run. She's great, isn't she? Really fortunate. I know where my limits on my own skills are, and there's something kind of freeing about that. It's like knowing where it's like, okay, as much as in my head I think of myself as this, really amazing whatever, I know that there's only so much of me, there are only so many things I can do. Kung Fu's going great. I actually, I'm a little behind for a couple weeks because we were doing some summer traveling, so to go see my parents, and so I'm kind of behind on my promotions. Thank you, man, and thank you for that question. Yeah, no, she's been. I mean, we're just so fortunate to have her here in the community. I mean, just I cannot tell you how thankful I am. Boy, this is taking longer than I thought. I thought I was going to be done faster, and I'm going pretty fast. But I love doing it. You guys know how I love doing the eyebrows. There's something about the eyebrows, just big, chunky eyebrows. I like to do. Well, it's not just that. You guys are great too. I absolutely love you guys. You guys are like my extended family on here, so Uba is a lot. He's a big boy. He is a big boy. I feel like he's like super like if you were to like hug him, he would be like a big like one of those plushies you'd get at Chuck E. Cheese or something. Super squishy. Like maybe his arms would be super like from his muscles, but otherwise he would be super squishy. Aww. You like those extra lines, right? I figured you'd notice that. I love doing those little details like that. Oops, you can't see. I don't think there's anything gonna be left of Hugo, Jess, by the time this hug is done. So I think it's too late. You need to find another boyfriend. Hugo is squashed. Yeah, like I think their upper body is kind of like this, but everything else I think is more squishy. I think. I saw this thing on Twitter where people were like other artists were complaining about like they hate to clean up, but that they love to color. And I am the complete opposite. I hate coloring so much. I hate coloring more than anything. I love to clean up though. It's a lot of fun. Right? Like that tail, like look at that tail. You can't tell me that this tail right here is not squishy. Look at that. Look how big it is. It's like a beanbag. It's got to be. It's so squishy. If you fished him out of the sea, you probably could make a few meals out of Gooba. That's a few. You could probably freeze the rest of him and make a few Thanksgiving meals out of this guy. He's pretty pretty thick. Oh, that's actually really cute, Joe. That's actually a cute idea. It's actually really cute. Yeah. You ready? Okay. Let me shut this down and we have to drop her off? Oh, okay. All right. That's my cue to go. I gotta go to do my kung fu. So it's totally fine. It's totally fine. What did we say earlier? We gotta go with the flow. Thank you guys so much. No, I'm not done. I'm done now.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Oh,
Look, isn't this great? So, anyways, love. See you guys later. Good night. Now it's awkward because I can't find the stop button. Oh, here we go. All right, now for real. Bye-bye.